The Fed stated that it is maintaining the federal funds rate within the range of 5.25% to 5.5%.
The United States imposed fresh sanctions targeting hundreds of entities and individuals linked to Russia's weapons development program.
The actions by the Treasury and State Departments aim to disrupt Russia's military-industrial base.
The British Home Office announced the initiation of efforts to detain migrants for relocation to Rwanda.
The goal is to facilitate flights to Rwanda within 9 to 11 weeks.
Walmart officials revealed plans to close all 51 of its health centers across 5 states and discontinue its virtual care services.
The decision to shut down all 51 health centers in 5 states and terminate the virtual care offering was not an easy one, Walmart officials said in a news release.
The opinions expressed on this program are those of the host or guest and should not be interpreted as statement of fact. Independent fact-checking and corrections are encouraged.
Can we get a cup of coffee in here, please?
Damn good coffee and hot.
My dog is your mind's best friend.
Wake up, America. You've got a dog that needs walking. That's right, sunshine. Just put on a big pot of strong coffee and get ready to type your little hate mail with your opinions about kumbaya and flat earth insanity. Stand-up comedy? You want stand-up comedy? Well, we've got sit-down comedy. It's time for Coffee with a Dog. You make me laugh.
Brother, it was Friday.
Hello? Good morning. We're in Canada mostly, and the United States of America. Missing currently is one person from Australia, but hopefully he'll be here. Anyway, it is Friday, May 3rd, 2024, right? That's the correct year. I don't know. My time machine broke, so I sometimes don't know what day, what year. Michael Hilliard of the Red Line digital broadcast, which he's still calling a podcast because he's old school, is scheduled to be here at 9:15 this morning. Now, 9:15 this morning is 9:15 p.m. for him. I believe it's 9:15 p.m. for him. It might be 10:15 p.m. But he's not here. And usually he's here early. He's here waiting. He's chomping at the bit to get on the show. So I'm a little concerned that we might have a no-show on our hands, which would really suck because we haven't had a whole lot of guest action this week anyway. And so, you know, I'm not really geared up. I was geared up for a good conversation about some stuff that's going on. Von Schitz's Pants is now going to be officially entrenched in history books as Michael Cohen's nickname for Donald Trump was introduced into court yesterday by Trump's lawyers, not by the prosecutors. Apparently, the man who makes up names for everybody is a little upset about being called Von Schitz's Pants. And so let's not call him Von Schitz's Pants unless you really want to upset him. Anyway, it's too late. It's in the public record now. So unless they go burning history books, kids 200 years from now will be learning. There ain't going to be no kids 200 years from now. But if there were 2 kids 200 years from now, they will be learning about Captain Von Schitz's pants. I don't know. That's amusing to me. If it's not amusing to you, you're probably in a cult. I'm just going to say that. You're probably in a cult. You might be noticing if you're watching on video right now that I didn't even bother putting on a shirt today. It's not like I'm not wearing any shirt at all. I'm wearing a T-shirt, the family T-shirt, which is about a production that never happened. A friend of mine wrote a pilot for a mob television show that never got off the ground. A pilot, it's more like I don't know, more like a dud. I'm sorry, it just never happened. Raised money for it, shot some of it 10 times over, never edited any of it, and it's just not a program. But I'm wearing a The Family shirt because as part of the GoFundMe, I sent in money and I got a shirt for it. So that's that. Eyes Wide Shut is trending on Twitter this morning. I guess it's an anniversary of the release of the film in 1999. But people, every time there is a Stanley Kubrick film anniversary, people want to bring up his declaration that the moon landing was fake. And as if that is absolute proof because he said so. I'd just like to point out that you can be a really good filmmaker. You could be a really eccentric artist, and he certainly was, if you listen to the interview. But not be a, I don't know, astrophysicist, rocket scientist, or any of that stuff. And Stanley Kubrick saying it doesn't make it true. I'm sorry, folks. We went to the moon in the news this morning. And we won't hear this from Alan Edwards, our AI. This guy, I'm going to keep saying these until Alan comes on the program himself. And I have written him a little email saying, you know what, we think you're AI. And when by we, I mean me. I think you're AI. So just pop in just to let us know you're a real human behind that AI sounding voice. But you won't hear in his news report this morning. I don't think so. I didn't preview the news this morning, so maybe we will. But China and the U.S. are both in a race to build a base on the moon. Base. I don't know. Not a military. Well, probably will be used for military if we get a base there. But it's interesting how if we never got there, how are we planning on building a base there? Anyway, lots of weird shit going on in the news. Of Von Schitz's pants, Eyes Wide Shut. Now, Eyes Wide Shut is a pretty creepy movie, and it does talk about all these secret orgies and stuff in Hollywood. Some people are saying it should be classified as a documentary. I don't know. That's going a little far. Again, you can be a really good artist and create films and books and stuff without really being the voice of knowledge and somebody you can rely on because they are of an opinion that makes every opinion they have true because they happen to be smart. Wow, Ian's already in the chat room here. He's Eyes Wide Shut should be called Asshole Wide Open. I don't know if we were quite ready for that at this point in the show. We do have a new sponsor I wanted to tell you about. Our new sponsor, are you depressed? Are you anxious? Are you feeling a little, I don't know, crazy? Are you feeling a little crazy? I wonder how that could have possibly happened. Anyway, we have a new sponsor that might have a solution, which I don't know about ketamine, to be honest with you. I don't really know anything about it, but I want to know about it. And one of our sponsors knows everything about it. And I might as well just play you that little piece before I bring the gentleman in because it's a new sponsor. We have a link in the description. You can check it out. If you're going nuts, you might want to check out Mind Bloom, which goes along with Mind Dog and Mind Your Own friggin' business very well. Here it is, ketamine treatment from Mind Bloom.
What if you could build a life you love and heal your brain instead of numb your emotions? What if you opened your mind with Mind Bloom? Our at-home ketamine therapy programs are more than medicine. We provide the right balance of structure and support for your personal journey. And after thousands of client transformations, you could say we have healing down to a science. First, you'll discuss your treatment goals with a licensed clinician. And if approved, we'll send your Bloom box and prescription right to your home. Because all 6 sessions in your program take place in the comfort of your space. Download the Mind Bloom app, your hub for treatment milestones, intention setting, hours of content, music, and more. Here, you'll match with a guide, our resident experts in supporting psychedelic therapy. Set aside a few hours for your first session, even though the effects of the medicine typically last just under 1 hour. You'll want to be in the right mindset to prepare with your guide, stay present in the experience, journal, and discuss how to integrate in the weeks ahead. You're probably wondering, what does ketamine therapy actually feel like? Mind Bloom clients have described their sessions as gentle, reflective, and dreamlike, and some report peaceful sensations like lifting or floating. Every mind and session is different, but you might start to notice changes in a short time. This is where neuroplasticity comes in. That's right. Ketamine therapy helps fuel new neural connections in your brain so you can form fresh perspectives and change your behaviors and outlook to realize improvements in your daily life, like healthier habits, less stress, and more optimism. With more than 10 focus areas to choose from, you can align your coaching, newfound awareness, and integration to get the most out of your treatment and see yourself and the world around you begin to bloom.
Open your mind with Mind Bloom and Mind Dog and Coffee with the Dog. Coffee basically does it for me. It's wonderful coffee. By the way, Ron Kane is a spot stealer, a dirty rotten spot stealer. I like GD on the bottom too because he's a bottom.
I bet you do like GD on the bottom, you nasties. What's up, you sissies? Let's cut point.
Oh, sissies.
Good morning, America. MindDogTV.com, the only place to purchase your official Mind Dog TV feed bag just in time for the Triple Crown. Kentucky Derby is this week. Mind Dog TV. Mind Dog TV, sing that song, doo-dah, doo-dah. Mind Dog TV all day long. MindDogTV.com. Enjoy the suffering.
You have to give a little grace to GD. He forgot to take his ketamine this morning. But it seems like he's still on it from last night. And Ron Kane has been sticking his elbow up his ass all day. So
I'm so hopped up. I'm so hopped up on ketamine and Eyes Wide Shut this morning. Looks like the Jerkins is coming out early.
You got you young studs, you young stallions. What the fuck is ketamine? Is it like mushroom? Is it like LSD? What is ketamine?
Pretty strong drug.
Yeah.
It's hallucinogen, right? Psychedelic, whatever it is.
No? A little, I would say a little less than that. Maybe in the setting that Mind Bloom puts you into, maybe. But the last time I took it, it just made me
you've
super
taken it.
hyper, and I didn't care about anything. I just wanted to go fuck shit up. So.
Oh, you've taken it now. You took it by prescription, or you bought it from a kid named Hervey on the corner?
He made.
I actually bought it. It was actually given to me by a carny at the 4-H fair when I was working there. He was like, "You want to try some ketamine? What's that?" Yeah.
No, that's basically how my teenage years went. Like, I'd ask what it was after I ate it. Or
yeah, I took it. I was like, "What was that?" And they were like, "Oh, it's ketamine." I'm like, "Okay." Yeah. And then I just went along my way, and yeah.
Well, all right. So Von Chitz's pants is now in the official history books of the United States of America, unless they burn the books. If Trump wins presidency, I'm sure he'll order that removed from public record or something. I don't know, but it's funny.
It's weird that he would want to burn books because we're not even sure if he can read. So it's kind of ironic.
It's true.
Want you reading it? That's the problem. Or your kids or the future generations knowing he was really. I think yesterday he finally figured out that people said he was falling asleep in court, and he came out with a statement. I'm not falling asleep. I'm just closing my big blue eyes, my beautiful big blue eyes, and listening and taking it all in. All right, whatever. And you're not farting. You always smell like that. That's
Captain Von Shit's pants.
Yeah, Von Shit's pants. And you can thank Michael Cohen for that. So Michael,
they're doing the
yeah. So Michael Hilliard. Speaking of Michaels, what time we got? He's officially late. I think, he knows the time zone stuff, but maybe they didn't go through daylight savings or whatever. Blah blah blah. I don't know. But I'm a little upset that Michael.
Where's he from?
Australia.
I can imagine that'd be a little confusing.
Yeah.
A guest on Mind Dog TV.
What is ketamine exposure, Alex?
It's like call on you. GD, what is your final Jeopardy question?
What is ketamine exposure, Alex?
And Ron Kane?
What is a no-show?
Wrong. And
he's here.
Sitcom Ortiz.
What is fashionably late?
Correct. We have a correct answer. We have a new Jeopardy champion. Steven, the Sitcom Ortiz, now officially will go on to the national finals in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Anyway, joining us now from the great state of, I don't know, Sydney, Britain. No, they don't have states. They have just territories. I don't know what they have down there. They have
down under and down under where?
Right. And I don't even know. Get out of my spot, you bastard. Do that. That's good. All right. A man who has the actual second greatest mustache on the planet Earth at this moment, the proprietor of the Red Line digital broadcast, although he still calls it a podcast because he's an old school kind of guy, Michael Hilliard. Thank you for being here, Michael.
It's a pleasure to be here. I'm sorry I'm fashionably late on this one.
Yeah, I generally you're early, and I always see that you get there before, and so I was a little concerned. You might not have. I don't know. Do you have daylight savings time down there? Do you switch clocks?
We do. So WA or my state has daylight savings, but it gets super weird because you've got it working. Some states do it, some states don't, and we change at different times. So yeah, my state doesn't. But it's. I just came off another interview, ran over time, so it's running from one to the next.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I wasn't sure. Now I know there's states in Australia because I've had plenty of people on from Australia. I should know this, but I hear about Sydney, Brisbane, and I always say Brisbane, of course, because I'm from here. But those are the only. And then
we have territories as well, if it helps.
So how many states does Australia have, just before we get
I should know this.
Sobriety. There's sobriety.
So WA, West Australia, South Australia, Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, Tasmania. And then we've got territories, which would be the Northern Territory. And then we've got obviously the Capital Territory, which is like our Washington. And then we've got a whole bunch of like little island territories. And then time zones get even weirder. So for instance, in my state, there's one town that uses a time zone that's like plus 8:45, which makes it really difficult. So at one point in Australia for about a week, I think we have about 12 time zones across all the territories and islands.
People in Canada don't know how many provinces they have. We've had somebody on, a man on the street, Vinny Vanelli, who's been gone. He does Canada versus America, and he's asked Canadians how many provinces they have, and they have no idea. So it's kind of weird how you cannot know that, but
again, it's not a nice round number like the United States has. You have 50. It's nice and easy to remember.
I thought it was interesting that when
to talk to you, and it is two side kicks up there. That's G.D. Fenderson. He's a certified forensic humorist. That's what the CFH stands for. Stephen the Sitcom Ortiz and Ron Kane, they are both stand-up comedians as well, just for to bust your balls. That's what they're here.
I think I met Ron Kane before. I'm pretty sure I had when I came on the show a long time ago.
Well, you haven't met me, and I want to make this meeting uncomfortable by saying, God, I love your accent. It just gets my jimmies going all sorts of ways, man. I swear to God, I love that Australian accent, man. It reminds me of my childhood with the crocodile hunter.
Right. You realize in Australia, they don't have accents. We have the accents in Australia. You realize that.
That's true.
But well, this is an American show, okay? And here, he's got the accent, okay?
He is our guest. I was just saying, I was a little confused because when you came on at 9:15. And the clock said 10:15, so I was trying to calculate the time difference. But then I realized that what you're doing is actually just a fake background, and your clock hasn't moved.
Yes, usually I would do briefings for governments and whatnot facing my computer, so I have all my screens. And then when I had to flip over, I didn't have time to flip over to my usual setup, so I'm on a virtual background this time, so a bit different.
Yeah, I figured it out once your clock didn't move and your hand kept disappearing when you talked.
Matt, things just move slower here in Australia. That's the real thing.
Backwards.
At least it's not
backwards.
A barbecue full of ribs behind your head, which makes it very weird. Have you been traveling through to various war zones around the planet?
Yeah, so I've been mostly ducking in and out of Central Asia, doing a big project out there. So that'll be Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, and I should be heading back there in a few. All the stans.
Now, not to kind of demonize you at all, but if war ended tomorrow, there would be no more war. You'd have to find a whole new business, wouldn't you?
I'm sure there'll be peace negotiations to talk about, and there's always oddities with everything. But yes, there'd be a lot of people unemployed.
Good news, though. Good news. The wars are never ending. Yeah,
I was going to just say that. So
I think it's a safe industry.
Yeah, business is popping.
As long as there are resources, land, and women, there will be wars.
Wow, that's very profound. Thank you.
Yeah, as long as there's guns, there will be wars.
Which one? Yeah.
Well, they were fighting wars way before there were guns,
you can fight wars with rocks and sticks and
spears. Yeah.
Yeah, but those aren't any fun. Those aren't any fun.
Yeah, back when Matt and GD were kids, they only threw rocks at each other. So.
Right.
Well, I had a sling. I didn't throw a rock. I had a sling.
Oh, my bad. Biblical times, right?
You spent good time in the U.S., right? In I believe. So you should be, if you've been here for 24 hours, you should know that we have a collective egomania. I want to start here with because the perception of the United States around the world. Are we a laughing stock right now with everything that's going on with our internal politics from around the world? And it's cool. These guys won't attack you for saying yes.
Again, I think there's a big distinction. It depends on the country. It depends on who you're talking to. And also, I think there's a massive distinction between the government and the people. I mean, that's the thing. It's one of those, even if you go to a pub in Australia and everybody hates whoever the president is, as an American, you'll rock up and we'll all still love you. We don't care who your president is because Australians, we don't always feel like our prime minister would represent us. So there is a massive difference. So there's never this kind of hatred towards the United States apart from very small periods of time. But, occasionally there's a disagreement in foreign policy or a question around decisions you guys make. But now, again, it really depends on.
Now, I have a question for you because in the U.S., there are cities and towns where they have elected dogs and cats as mayors. Do you have any towns or provinces in Australia where they've elected an emu or koala as their mayor?
Not off the top of my head, but we do have lots of oddities in Australian politics. Not only is one of our largest cities named Townsville, which is the most funny thing I've seen, but we had, when people ask me how would I sum up Australian politics in a nutshell, I always tell the story that we had a prime minister, which is our version of president, Harold Holt, who went for a swim one day and went missing. Probably got taken by a riptide. never found, just disappeared in the ocean one day. And this country collectively got together and we dedicated a swimming pool to him in Melbourne. Sorry, I mean, that should,
awesome.
if anything, sums up Australian politics, I think that's probably where we are. That everything can be funny and everything can be a shitpost.
That'd be like making the Lincoln Memorial a shooting range.
Yeah, it'd be virtual. And also, we find it really interesting because obviously you can't get near the US president for love or money. He's very, very, surrounded by security and it's very protected. Our guys aren't as much. So there are cases where our prime minister will just be at concerts or will just be at a show or, a case quite recently during the last election where effectively they were doing a big presser talking about how great building construction is in the country, being happy about it. But they didn't clear it with the person's lawn they were doing the press conference from. So he came out in his robe and told the prime minister and the whole TV crews, "Get off my lawn! What are you talking about?" And he had to leave. The prime ministers aren't taken nearly as seriously here, but it's a very different system, I guess.
See, for love of money and for enough money, you can talk to our president.
Oh, it's the same here. We definitely have lobbyists and whatnot, but I think
you just got to catch them in between shit in their pants.
Yeah.
That was
paying attention to what's going on with Trump in court and all that stuff, and
very briefly. I kind of catching it now and again in between everything else. And I'm not crazy surprised. This has not been a shock to anyone who worked in the White House during his administration. So, yeah, I mean, he's an old guy. He's an old guy who doesn't exercise or work out or take his health very seriously. So I'm not completely shocked. I'm sure that there's probably exaggeration in this as well. And I don't know there's enough evidence to call it one way or the other. But like as a story, it wouldn't raise too many eyebrows on me.
Yeah.
Well, his doctor did say he's the healthiest man on the planet. So
he could live to be 200 years old.
Easily.
Well, yeah, what just boggles my mind is that he has to be the best. Like I would be, if he was to just say, look, doctor says I'm healthy, that's what how a normal person would lie. But he just has to do the way over the top, which is always interesting to me.
Right. Well, here's why I brought up the collective egomania, because I think and you hear this every time, this is the most important election of our lifetime. They would say that every 4 years here. But I do think that we are really we have 3 people running for president. These guys up on top will probably say 2 people running for president. But no matter
say 5.
Yeah, G will tell you 5, and two of them are like, will get less votes than me. But no matter who wins this thing, I don't think America is going to be in good shape. And I'm the pessimist and the doomsday kind of guy I'm thinking this is the end of the quote unquote American empire. And if so, does the rest of the world just carry on as if, because we are kind of important to a lot of places around the world, even though our egomania says we got to call ourselves number one and everything. A lot of countries depend on us for business and all that kind of stuff. Our economics footprint around the world is large enough that it would affect the world. Do you think there's any concern about that? Like the American empire is getting ready to fall.
So a lot to unpack there. Yes, absolutely. We are massively affected by the Americans. The Americans are the center of all geopolitics in the world. And as much as, China is obviously a very big growing force, Russia's, arguably a major power, depending on who you want to talk to. The things like the American dollar are the backbone of world economies. It's the backbone of most things. So what you guys do absolutely affects everyone. In fact, I would argue that America collapsing would probably have more damage on the Australian economy than the Australian government collapsing, just with the way that globalized trade is set up these days. What I will, kind of keep pointing out to people is that the president, actually doesn't matter that much. To be perfectly honest, the president doesn't make a huge amount of decisions.
Right.
He's kind of the way that, works in States is effectively he'll have a cabinet, and he'll have his specialty guys. So let's say he's got his head of the National Security Council who's specializing in, Russia or Eurasia. And the president won't be pouring through documents on reading stuff about Turkmenistan. He'll get a quick briefing on it, and he'll have the expert come in and go, hey, here are the 4 options we have available to us. Here is what I recommend. Here is the second option. Here are the repercussions on all 4. This is what the department recommends. Most of the time, the president will probably just go, okay, I see your logic, no problem, and they'll make that decision. Or sometimes they'll change their mind of what they want to do. What the absolute decision and what terrifies and what people don't realize is the actual power and what makes or break governments is the cabinet picked. If a cabinet is full of really, really good people who are good at their job, you have amazing governments because they know exactly what they're doing. They know what levers to pull. They know how the system works. If you pick nut jobs or you pick people who are unqualified, that's when the huge problems come in. So if you look at all the odd legislation that may have been pushed forward by during the Trump administration, Trump didn't write any of those papers. Do you really think he was sitting there writing? No, those are pushed through by the cabinet members or lobbyists through cabinet members. So the cabinet is the one that actually decides most things. And as much as Biden is not a great speaker, he's still fairly good behind the scenes from what we understand. And friends who I have work at the White House say he's just a terrible speaker, but he's very sharp on the details. He'll pick a good cabinet. And I think, really interests me that we went from the end of the Obama cabinet where the Secretary of Energy was a Nobel Peace Prize winning physicist. That's the guy also in charge of the nuclear weapons. And then we went to the Trump administration. We had Rick Perry, who'd just come off Dancing with the Stars at the time. So cabinets absolutely matter on and have far more impact on what happens with the government far more than a president does. It's just that when you elect the president, that president then technically gets to pick the cabinet, although he'll usually have his chief of staff suggest cabinets.
Oh yeah, Michael, I completely agree with what you're saying because I mean, you could see how low the bar was during the last administration. I mean, you could have taken somebody with a head injury and they would have put them in place. So, yeah, it's don't ever come here.
he has burned all the voices of reason that will possibly work for him, like the people who did work for him, who talked him out of executing U.S. citizens and people like situations like that, are all against him now, and all have burned their bridges with him by saying nasty things about him and hurt his feelings. So all he has left is complete loyalists. Like they're talking about Michael Flynn. I mean, this is a guy who you can't get a more corrupt person than that. But yes, man, is basically all he's looking for. The key thing now is anybody who's completely loyal to him to a fault. So if he wins, I'm really concerned about that. But
I don't even think he wants yes men. I think he wants people who just do it and not even open their mouths.
Yeah.
I don't even think he wants to talk to him because there might be a recording. He just wants them to do it.
Right. So now let's shift gears here, because right when the Russian invasion into Ukraine, if I can call it that, and name it what it really is, when that happened, you were on the program, and when I was talking about all those people who were saying it's going to last 3 months. Here we are. I don't know how far down the road.
It's going to be years.
Yeah. Do you see any end in sight, or is this going to be a American Vietnam type of situation that's going to go on forever and ever?
So this is the interesting sort of conundrum that everyone's in at the moment. If you're in the Ukraine space or you're looking at Eastern defense, is right now there's a couple of problems for the Ukrainian military. One is procurement and effectively getting weapons and armament to them. And what people don't realize is when a government signs a big arms deal like they did recently, they're not actually signing an arms deal. They're effectively making a kind of like a gift card that says like redeem for $600 million worth of arms. Right. And also, you have to get the companies to make those arms, and that's obviously a problem. Now, what we saw is that when America seemed really committed to this, that a lot of these companies who were making the caliber weapons that Ukraine uses were ramping up. They're putting on extra staff, they're expanding their warehouses, they're doing stuff, and then there started to be doubt sowed into the system where people went, ugh, are the US actually going to do this? And they didn't expand warehouses. They didn't put on those extra staff. So now, even if this stuff is passed, not only do we have to wait for it to kind of trickle down, but we've got to wait for all these guys to effectively build the factories and get it going. And plus, then we hit the second problem of a self-perpetuating cycle where, if you are, let's say you have 5 artillery shells rocking up at your house every week. If you go on offensive, it costs you maybe 10 artillery shells a day. It's very expensive to go on an offensive because you have to launch lots and lots of weapons and ammunition at it. Now, if you have 5 coming in a day or 10 coming in a day, you feel perfectly fine to do that. You know there's more coming down the line. If you don't, maybe you stick to where you are on the front line and you go, well, maybe I only expend 2 a day. Or maybe you pull back to over a river where you only need to launch 1 a day because you don't know where more are coming down the line. So we've hit this cycle where Ukraine goes, okay, I don't know where ammunition is coming from, and I don't want to run out of ammunition, so I'm not going to go on the offensive. To which then people go, well, Ukraine's not getting any ground. Obviously, they're losing. Let's cut their ammunition. To which then Ukraine can't go on the offensive, to which we then end up in the cycle again.
Real generals will understand that. I mean, and those are the people that are in the ear. So they would.
But real generals aren't making the decisions around funding. That's the trouble we're facing.
Well, I'm just saying, but they're the ones who can inform. I know they're not the ones making the decisions. It's dipsticks like Mike Johnson who are at least making some of the decisions. You know?
Yes, and that'll be part of the problem is generals have been screaming about this forever. This has been fantastic for effectively, destroying Russia's offensive capabilities for just a small percentage of what the US is probably going to mothball anyway. Plus, it's put in so many jobs throughout the United States because what people don't realize is, yes, whilst Poland and these kind of countries have to go rebuy military equipment quite often, the United States kind of just makes more of their own stuff and they're paying their own people. It's a jobs program, effectively.
Right.
Yeah. So now we hit this conundrum effectively where everyone's now waiting for November, where the Russians are just going to kind of, bite away at the lines, take bits here and there, have a bit of a breakout here and there, and Ukraine either has to go and try and hold these cities which are not as defendable. Effectively, everyone talks about how Avdiivka was this big battle and they held it for a long time, but Avdiivka has been a fortress since 2014. It's right on that border effectively with Donetsk that the Ukrainians have spent effectively nearly 8 years building into a fortress. Now that Avdiivka's fallen, there's not really many defendable cities between here and you start getting into the sort of the inner land. So if you're Ukraine, you might be making decisions of, okay, do I stay here and lose a lot of men and a lot of ammunition fighting in towns that are less defensible, or do I pull back to, over rivers or behind natural defense barriers or at pre-prepared defense lines, which are more defendable? I'll save more men. I'm going to use less ammo. But in the media and in the general public, people are going to see that line move and not think about it the way I would and think about it, line move, Russia winning, why should we support Ukraine? Which is going to be really important going into sort of going into the election, that if Trump wins and he feels that, Ukraine is not worth supporting and goes, that's it, I'm done, no more support for Ukraine, that's the end of the game. Ukraine knows that at some point they will run out of ammunition. And once a soldier runs out of ammunition, he effectively becomes a poorly dressed tourist. So here's where we are, where it's a pretty dire situation where I think everyone in everyone in Kiev and everyone in Ukraine will be watching every county in the US very closely.
Okay, now so in the event that, let's say, because one of the things that the US used to do really, really well was topple governments and assassinate leaders. We've kind of lost our groove in that a little bit, but I think Russia's gotten better at it, at least as far as. But let's say, for example, Putin accidentally gets shot in the head. Removed by office.
They do things over there. He
was removed from office through lead poisoning in the head. Is there someone in the horizon in Russia? Does it look like they would pick another Putin, or like they would pick someone who was like, okay, I want Russia to do well, so let's stop all this territory grabbing. Ukraine, you can go back to your original borders. We'll pull our people out. We'll send back your children we stole. Let's, does that seem like a reasonable option? I don't know who's in the pipeline for Russian leadership.
The sad bit is that the people who would likely take over would be, people like Patrushev or Bortnikov, who are from the security services. They are effectively set up to be the next. You would technically have Mishustin fill in for the first day, who's the prime minister. But Mishustin is, I can't say it on air, but pretty useless. And this is really on air. And this is. I might have to go to Russia very soon, so I have to say be careful my words. So. It's really common in Russian politics that you make sure your second in command or your second option is not a good option. It's why Stalin had, effectively a very, very weak person below him, because that way they knew that if Stalin was killed, you'd end up with a really weak leader of the Soviet Union. So if Putin was to have a heart attack, die, whatever it is, you'd end up with Patrushev or Bortnikov probably coming into place. And both of those guys are even harder warmongers than Putin is. They are far less pragmatic, and I know one of those particularly has talked about using nuclear weapons. So it's not a good option for who would come after Putin. Effectively,
so you'd have to take all three of them out.
You'd have to take out about 12. Because again, remember the way the Russian system is effectively built is Putin has made sure to put all of the major companies, the ones that get state contracts, in with friendly people. So for Gazprom, for Bashneft, the Rosneft, all these kind of guys are made sure they're Putin loyalists in place who are making squillions of dollars because they're in that position. And all of those guys who control the levers of government and power know that, okay, if Putin dies, will the next guy give me as good a position, or is he going to give that to his loyalist? To which case, all of those guys in all the sectors of government and in oligarchs in major positions of power have incentives to keep Putin in power or keep a Putin loyalist in power who won't charge them for corruption afterwards. So the whole system is built to make sure Putin does not, there's no one to replace him.
But why not have a corrupt leader who just wants to have a peaceful country that's not as always at war? They could still then they'd have an economy based on the world market. They could actually free trade with people and make more money.
Let me take that idea, because I wanted to ask this question about this, and it plays off of exactly what GD's talking about here. But I don't think we understand the true motivation. Now, there are Russian loyalists in this country who explain their position that we're putting NATO awfully close to him, and it's a defensive move for him. And there are other people who will say it's an aggressive move for him, getting Ukraine in order to. It's like an imperialistic move, or an act of an aggression versus an act of defensiveness. From the other side of the world, the perspective on that, do you think there is an argument to be made that it really just wants to protect themselves against NATO aggression, and that's a real cause here, or is it he's really just he's an imperialist like the United States?
So obviously, there's shades of gray in everything, and yes, I'll give the sort of Russian perspective first, because there is some stuff that people don't really get about some of the Russian mindset. We don't talk about World War II. We talk, the Americans talk about World War II a lot, but for Russia, it is everywhere. The Great Patriotic War is, if there is a town with 3 buildings, one of them is a monument to the Great Patriotic War, which is what they call World War II. Every general will know exactly how many Ks it is to Berlin. They all fear this massive strike coming in from the West. What the younger ones, who probably are a bit more adept or have been West a few more times, know that's not going to happen. NATO has no plans to effectively go marching westward, because A, you need a consensus to do that, and NATO tends not to do that. And B, there's nuclear weapons. It's just, you don't taking Russia would be like trying to eat 20 elephants at once. It's impossible to do.
One bite at a time.
Yeah, but even a one bite at a time, how long does that coalition last? I mean, that's the trouble. It's that one bite at a time, but then do you actually, when you get full? So there is a thought in Russia has always wanted to have better defensive lines, and right now they used to have a really nice defensive situation at the end of the Cold War. They could chuck 1 million men into East Germany, and then the Carpathians through Hungary and Romania that kind of defend it. Very hard to cross that. Bulgaria is down there to defend against anything coming up from Turkey. The Caucasus are there. You can't come up through them. Obviously not coming through Scandinavia because there's bloody nothing up there. That was a nice position for them. And now they have to defend all of Finland. They have to defend against all of the Baltics. They've got all the sort of around Belarus. And if Ukraine was to fall, that would be a really terrible position for them to be in. Saying that, though, this is paranoia. And the Russian, any Russian general who you will give that statement and say, they came at us before, and you get them drunk and they go, okay, well, look, we know they're not going to come and get us. It's just not a thing. So where they're walking to Ukraine seems to be that, Putin was given false information, that he was given he was effectively getting, rather than getting briefings from intelligence services and really good, analysts, he was getting it from just Bortnikov and Patrushev, who were telling him that Ukraine was a rotten house that the kick in the door and the whole thing falls down. and that the whole thing would be over in 3 days, and he would have a friendly government that will allow him to push out, his defensive line all the way out to Europe, and it would split NATO and a whole bunch of stuff. It didn't happen, and everyone knew who watched Russian politics it wasn't going to happen. Russia's army, very famously, is how far can the Russian army march? About 50 k's past the train lines. They're famously reliant on rail transportation still. So this is Putin thinking, okay, I have this dice I can roll, and it's huge upside, very little risk. I can probably take it. But now we're stuck in the position of, if he pulls out and gets nothing for it, the Russian population will turn on him. That's what his concern is.
But what if we redefine nothing? I mean, he's an authoritarian. He can lie his way out of anything. He could redefine what nothing is.
You could tell them
we're giving them back their land. But we will get a great economy, and you guys can stop pretending that we're eating well and actually eat well.
Again, but will they eat well? If Putin was to pull out tomorrow,
they will. If he feeds them, they will eat well.
Well, this is the trouble. How could he feed them? So right now, for instance, they've, when Russia has done this and effectively come under all these sanctions, they're forced to make up the difference that they were getting through the European markets by turning to the Chinese markets, and the Chinese have gouged them. So classic example, when the largest Russian gas fields are up in the Arctic, about half, but let's call it a third or nearly halfway down the country, right at the top. Now, back before the war, Russia was getting about $509 per 1,000 meters cubed of gas. Plus, it's really cheap. You're just chucking in a pipe; it goes straight down to Europe. Now, because Europe's cut them out, and they have to effectively either run it through third parties. So Russia will export gas to countries like Slovakia or Moldova or Turkey, and Turkey will then export Azerbaijan as well, and then they'll export that as Azeri gas. Or he has to go effectively pump it all the way down into Europe and then all the way out to China. And China, because they were Russia was desperate for financial aid at the time, is now paying, only getting $297 per 1,000. So effectively, he's got costs up, and then he's got only getting a 40% discount to the Chinese just to get the Chinese to buy this gas.
The Chinese-Russian relationship is a very weird one because they don't like each other, they don't trust each other, but they have some sort of alliances there. It's kind of like I don't know. That seems like a sticky wicket. If like anytime that relationship could go sour and they could end up being enemies, but you never want to risk being enemies with your neighbor because they can burn your house down. So it's a really it's a tough one to understand from our perspective, and I don't think most Americans really ever consider how that.
I got a question about that, Michael. How mad do you think the Chinese are mad at the Russians because they couldn't deliver Ukraine?
Not at all. The Chinese are loving this. They are making out like bandits at the moment. Effectively, the Russians have nowhere else to go. So China is buying everything at a discount and just kicking Russia whenever it can. So classic example, just because they could, a few months ago, they reintroduced all tariffs on Russian coal. So Russia would have to pay more, but they keep the tariffs in non-existent on Indonesian and Australian coal, which just puts the boot into Russia as hard as possible. So China made demands of Russia that China be allowed to enter the Russian auto markets. So now there's all these cheap Chinese cars that are just sending all the Russian automakers effectively bust very quickly. And now you've got a lot of these banks which are saying, we're not going to fund that Russian program unless you give us a nice little discount. And because Russia has nowhere else to go, they're stuck. They have to effectively just, concede to whatever China wants them to concede to. This is a really, really good place for China to be. And it's why the big pipeline Putin's been talking about recently, which is the Power of Siberia 2, effectively taking it from that gas field and rather than going all the way to Europe and then all the way back across, going straight from the Arctic fields down to China. And while Putin's saying it's the deal of the century, we should do it because he needs the cash, China just keeps pushing the snooze button on it because he knows that each month that goes by, Russia gets more desperate for the cash, and Russia is unfortunately going to have to keep conceding terms to China. So for China, they definitely want to be involved in Ukraine. They probably wouldn't mind seeing Russia, have a victory there because it will a Russian victory there will effectively keep NATO more occupied in Europe rather than the Asia Pacific. But right now, they're the real winners of the war in Ukraine because they're just getting everything from Russia at a discount, whilst most of your a lot of the programs that people are looking to fund, which are great programs on weapons that would be used to fight Asia Pacific battles, are now being used to rebuild tank programs and ground war kind of procurement programs that you would use to fight Russian tanks in Ukraine. So China again is more than fine with the status quo in Ukraine.
Yeah, China loves that capitalism.
Yeah. China is the most capitalist and the most communist, depending on the day. They have absolute state regulation on a whole bunch of industries, but I have never seen such unregulated. I guess the term in Australia, I guess, would be like shit effery. But yes, so yeah, they are. I always laugh when I hear people say, "Well, China's a communist." I go, yeah, kind of, but they're not capitalist either.
Biden has no leverage with China because they news reports that Biden was going to lean on China to get them to stop supporting Russia. He has no leverage in this. I mean, when they have every incentive to keep doing exactly what they're doing, right?
So here's some leverage, and we have been some success. So, for instance, China doesn't supply Russia with direct arms. They supply Russia with what's called dual-use technologies. So, I'm not selling you a missile guidance system. I'm selling you a navigation system. And if it fits in a missile, that's your business. That's what China sells them. And what China does, and what people don't realize, is people go, yes, so brave. Germany, China, all these countries are no longer selling airplane parts to Russia. But weirdly enough, the amount of airplane parts that Kyrgyzstan and Kazakhstan are buying at the moment is roughly about the same amount Russia was buying pre-war. I wonder why. Not that I'm making any accusations. Sanctions are only effective as how you enforce them. And this is the trouble, that now the Americans are put in a hard position where should they sanction Kazakhstan or Kyrgyzstan? Because they haven't done anything wrong. They're not, they're just innocent bystanders in this. And that's a really good way to piss off a lot of people, because if you were to go do that to Kyrgyzstan, you annoy everyone in Kyrgyzstan, and you do that on the Monday, and by Tuesday they simply just move the chain to Tajikistan, and then they'll just move it again to somewhere else. It's a whack-a-mole game that you can't win, unfortunately, if countries are willing to take some money off the top to keep the system going. China, we just have seen Janet Yellen, the Secretary of the Treasury, going to China effectively to warn them of the impending, I think it comes out tomorrow or the day after, a packet of sanctions that is likely to come up on a lot more Russian industries. We also saw Blinken travel to China recently as well. And I found it really interesting that, diplomacy is always this language of actions and theater. They're like really moody theater kids, all of them. Where he'll get there and he'll be greeted by the Chinese foreign minister, because that's what the appropriate response is. We are equals. Your foreign minister comes, my foreign minister picks you up from the airport. But when they dropped him off, it was no foreign minister. It was just the local consular general in Beijing, which indicates that the meeting did not go well. So long story short, there is some things the US can do, but it gets really dicey very quickly, because going on the blunt hammer, let's just sanction everyone in this country, is definitely going to hurt your general public. It's going to make food scarce. It's going to hurt the average citizen, who that's the guys you're trying to win over for the next administration. Or B, because anyone who's smart, the oligarchs, they haven't got their money in the obvious places. They got it in Singapore or the Cayman Islands or Ireland or quite often the UK. So you'd actually have to go chasing their money in the UK, and the Americans don't really want to do that because it opens a can of worms. So this is the trouble with sanctions, that it is really, really difficult to sort of target these things.
Wow. Again, you are not in any jeopardy of losing your job, because this sounds like we're going to continue down this path. Now, that segues well into the next question, which is, we hear our news is Ukraine and Israel constantly. Those are the two conflicts that we're talking about. But there's stuff going on in Sudan and Yemen. How many wars, how many conflicts around the globe that Americans aren't aware of?
Oh God!
All of them.
So there are a lot of Americans who are very aware of them. And again, your State Department is very aware of them. They're very involved in some of them. Again, most of the time for humanitarian reasons. But regardless, you've got just off the top of my head, Indonesia's got West Papua, a resurgency out there still going on. Papua New Guinea's got an insurgency going on as well at the moment. We've got Myanmar, which is effectively let's call it 4-way civil war, about to smash into a 12-way civil war. We've got Afghanistan is having problems with ISKP. We've got problems in Iran with Baluchistan. That's in Pakistan as well. We've got problems in Mozambique with Cabo Delgado in the north. Tanzania's got problems out there. Rwanda, Uganda. They've currently sent occupation forces into the northeast of Congo. Congo is also having problems in the south, but Congo is always having problems. Nigeria is having problems in the north. Niger is having problems. Mali's got effectively insurgency going on. That's about a 4-way problem at the moment. Sudan's in a absolutely brutal civil war at the moment, and it looks like the nastiest team are winning that one, unfortunately. Egypt has got an insurgency out in the Sinai Peninsula and is having massive instability inside even the capital at the moment. Libya is still raging. We've got problems in Western Sahara. Obviously, Venezuela just made a claim on Guyana. Venezuela's
got the difference between now and the 1940s is that it's not like two teams, but there's still we're basically at a world war, but the world is at war, but there aren't two teams like taking sides on every conflict.
So I guess with the world wars, it's two sides kind of fighting each other, whereas this is it's a lot of tiny spot fires, and there's also a very big difference on spot fires because we've always had spot fires. War is it happens all the time. But the big difference is when the spot fires grow into cross-border spot fires. So, let's say one of the reasons that Biden is very keen to be make sure we draw a line in the sand in Ukraine is whilst a situation like Sudan or Mali is an absolute tragedy, it's intra-country conflict. We're not going to change the borders of the country depending on what happens. Whereas if Ukraine, let's say Russia gets away and annexes, let's call it, the eastern half of Ukraine and gets away with that, and countries around the world are given the signal that, hey, rules are off, you can now change your borders by aggression. Well, then Serbia has the idea, Kosovo has the idea, Algeria, Morocco have the idea, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan have the idea, India, Pakistan have the idea, Thailand, Malaysia have the idea, Bangladesh and India might even have the idea. We're just seeing all these conflicts where people go, I'm not really happy with the border, and I think I can change it by force. Whereas in the past, anytime we've changed borders, either been through referendum or agreement or kind of a breakaway, we don't really change borders by aggression. And it's been massive efforts by the international community to say, hey, look, you might not like the lines on the map where they're drawn now, but these are the lines on the map when we're not opening that can of worms. Because remember, it's the Yugoslavia problem that it's when you open up and say, hey, look, we're redrawing borders, everyone goes, okay, if I throw everything I can at the wall right now, maybe I can get 4 more villages that then I can hold on to them for the next 100 years. And we just want to desperately avoid that as a situation.
So then your people who make maps are the ones who are making the money.
Well, not really, because they don't get to print new ones. They're using the same maps.
Do you sleep?
It's a big map conspiracy.
Do you sleep at all?
No.
All those things that you just mentioned, because it's your job to be educated on all those things. It seems like there's too much homework for you, dude.
I missed about 12 more if you want me to keep going. Yeah,
I thought you were going to say you missed some holidays. That's what I thought you were going to say. I've missed my kids growing up. I didn't even know I had kids, but I missed them. They grew up.
Yeah, and again, also realize that most of the people who work for the US, or you work for Western intelligence services, you work in that sphere. All the other guys know our holidays, so it's really common that effectively any bad actors will try and make moves during Thanksgiving or during Christmas or during Friday night at about 7:00 DC time is a real classic time to go do stuff because they know that that's when the general will probably have 18 hours before he gets back onto deck. If he's off, if that member's away or whatever it is. So yeah, it's a fun time for the US, but there are lots of stuff happening. There always is. We just got to make sure we kind of not let it spiral into the next level of chaos.
I get it. Now, I appreciate you being here and spending this time. I know it's late for you; it's early for us. But one more question about journalism in particular, because I don't think. And listen, I don't want to get into your personal finances, but I don't think there's.
Have you seen those wars? I have no personal life.
Well, yeah. I don't think there's enough money in the kind of journalism you do to encourage more people to be like you, and because you do try to see everything from both sides and just be honest about the facts, and rather than having an agenda put forward. But the state of journalism in the United States is really about entertainment. It's all about making money, and people are so driven by getting rich and famous that they forget about true journalism, like you produce all the time. And I think it's a really difficult thing. Do you have any kind of optimism for true journalism like yours if it does not? It doesn't pay compared to like the entertainment journalism, the infotainment type of stuff, where we're seeing more and more people just abandon journalistic principles. What's your take on that?
It's a tough industry and it's a tough situation to be in. And it's the classic example is if, let's say, people find a tweet where someone's showing tanks entering a city. If CNN and let's say, Jim Bob 84 decides to tweet that, if it's right, CNN gets a good job, you did what you did. And if Jim Bob gets it, good job, here's some likes and you did what he did. But if it's wrong, no one cares if Jim Bob got it wrong. It's Jim Bob. But if CNN gets it wrong, they will hear about it for the next 6 months. So they end up having to try and fact check. And if they fact check, then they're 6 hours behind Jim Bob, and Jim Bob gets all the credit and the clicks and the money and the fame for it. And that's kind of the problem with, again, it's a two-edged sword because, you get so much great information from on the ground. You get to effectively, when rockets are falling, it's great to be able to message people and go, okay, can you jump on the phone with me? I'd love to have a chat with you and sort of go through what's going on, as well as, these days geolocating is quite easy. So, if there's rockets falling on a particular town and people have shared it, it's really easy to go through that metadata and see where the rocket GPS coordinates were, or go through and match up, does the story match up and go through that. And there is this hive mind that can jump on that. It's great. But it does hurt, a lot of journalists who aren't, on the gun, want to be the first out with the story, which is what we don't do. We kind of sit back, let the dust settle and really give you effectively what consultants or a lot of those government experts will do is quite often say, here is the 400-page report of what's actually just happened. But, the key takeaway is this, and this is what we'd recommend. It's, if you want to work in consulting or you want to be taken seriously past Twitter, that's unfortunately what you have to do. But it does mean that you are consistently pipped at the post by most journalists who are willing to just press the button and delete the tweet later. Because, again, no one cares if Jim Bob gets it wrong.
Yeah, I get you. Well, we appreciate it. Redline podcast. I call it a digital broadcast.
Whatever, it all works.
Well, I'm really opposed to the word because everybody and his brother has a podcast, and his mother and his dog has a podcast now, and the field of podcasting has just been, to me, it's a disrespectful term. So Redline podcast is still the URL.com. But think of it as a digital broadcast, and I appreciate all that you do. Hopefully, more people will pay attention. Does anybody ever say, or do you ever get feedback that I saw you on my dog TV?
I think I have. I think I got a couple emails saying that they'd seen me here, and I was like, oh, okay, what a weird place to see me, which is weird because I'm much more relaxed here than I would be on the show. Because I remember sending out a very early demo of the show to a producer and him going, you can do jokes, you can do genocide, you can't do both.
Well, we can do both here.
Follow you and follow your digital broadcast because we talk about these things all the time, but we talk about them from the perspective of uninformed adults. And so it's good to get a little information.
I do have one question.
Mm-hmm.
A few years ago, the big narrative here, everyone was upset that we pulled out of Afghanistan, just suddenly. I mean, don't you think that was just because we were setting up the sequel to 9/11?
Okay, so Afghanistan was I think the best analogy I've ever heard for Afghanistan is this picture I have on my phone somewhere of a cabinet where in an earthquake the plates had all fallen and hit the glass. Now the cabinet, they're still held in place, but the moment you open that cabinet up, the plates are going to smash. That's kind of where Afghanistan had been for a very long time. So I remember being in Uzbekistan back in 2016. And by that point, the Taliban weren't even buying any more guns because they just got a huge amount for the A&A stockpiles they were continuously capturing. The US during the Trump administration stopped even reporting how much land they'd lost to the Taliban because it was just losing too much. Now, from all accounts, Trump made his deals to say we're going to pull out, and this was going to happen. Biden agreed. It was due. Some president had to do it, but everyone knew it was going to be an absolute. It was going to be a bun fight when they did. They actually negotiated a fairly decent ceasefire, a decent pull-out strategy to get out. And then what happened is effectively the Taliban, pulled up to Kabul. They set up at the edge of town and were effectively abiding by the rules. They were going to stay there until the Americans had got out, and then they move in and do what they do. But then people heard on Twitter and social media kicked off, and rumors started spreading around Kabul, and chaos broke out in the city, and it fell to hell. And what happened is all the A&A guys, effectively, no one wants to be the last person wearing the A&A uniform. They ripped off their uniforms and joined the looting. And now, if you're Biden, you're stuck with only three choices. One, you surge troops in, which is you're just making the problem harder. You let it absolutely devolve into a chaotic riot state, which is not a good solution because, again, you've got personnel on the ground. Rioters are more likely to kill than the Taliban will. Or you let the Taliban come into the city early and effectively assume policing roles, assume control of the city. And that's what they did. They said, okay, Taliban, you're up, you come in a month early. And if you actually look at the conduct of the Taliban, they're fairly reasonable. They came in, they took over policing. They didn't, if it was a standard ISIS or it was a Taliban in the much earlier stages of the campaign, they would have run straight to the embassies to capture them and hold people hostage. Instead, the Taliban were offering armed escorts for people to the airports. I remember helping, doing some fixer work and whatnot during that thing. And the first day, chaos. It was, okay, I'm going to get you out in a water truck and we're going to get you across the border. By day two, it was, book a travel agent. Who cares? Why are you calling me?
But did the Taliban actually know how to govern? I mean, they knew how to rule, but did they know how to govern?
This is the troubling bit. So the bit that people misunderstand as well, before we get to the governing, is the fact that the guys that carried out the attacks were ISIS Khorasan, who are anti-Taliban and are desperate to try and they're a bit of an upstart group. They're an offshoot of ISIS, and they really wanted the US to surge and get more involved in Afghanistan because they know that's a great way to recruit. So that's why the attacks on the airport were actually carried out by ISKP, not Taliban. The Taliban have come into power and are still actually getting quite a bit of US support and help and international help because, again, really good ability to go take ground, yet that doesn't really help you run an Excel spreadsheet. Right. And the Taliban are also stuck in this position, much like every other government, where there is two factions. There is a half of the Taliban who are, hey, we won the war, let's govern, let's set up a real country, let's do international business, let's actually make the lives of the people we live in this country better. And then you got the other half of the Taliban who said, hey, look, we just fought for 20 years. Why can't we put, a much harsher Islamic law into place? There is that hard line and soft line balance in the Taliban happening at the moment. This is the trouble that if we support, we can either choose to support the Taliban and try and get the softer factions up and try and build up the country, but it's still supporting the Taliban. Or B, we can let the softer factions collapse and either we fall to the much harder factions of the Taliban or state collapse and we end up seeing someone like ISIS Khorasan come into power, which are far worse than what the Taliban are. So
or C, we build a wall and let them go east, let them get like East and West Berlin. It's like those are another country, another border.
Tear down this wall.
Look, if you can build anything in Afghanistan at the moment, it's good.
Well, it's more like an imaginary wall. It'd be like people standing on the border yelling "wall" when they got real close, like "wall."
And that's the trouble is ISIS KPs live way out in the west of the country, but they'll come in and they'll try and start nonsense. So they've carried out a few attacks quite recently. But this is just the trouble we're in is, who do you support? If I'm, and again, this is the area I look at most often is Central Asia. I'm looking at who the players are on the table here. And as much as, it hurts to say, Taliban's probably the most reasonable out of the players on the table. And that's the horrible situation is, do you try and build up this government to effectively try and govern and rule the country, or do you let it fall into chaos and we end up having a hotbed for terrorism again? Because this is the trouble that affected
on this program.
Yeah, I know a veteran who did a tour over there in Afghanistan, and when we finally pulled out, which everyone knew, somebody had to do it. It was telling me just how disappointed he was, because like when they were over there, he was telling me like what great people they are, and like just like the art and culture they had, and then we just kind of like, yeah, we're done, and we screwed that up as usual, like we normally do.
See, this is the concerning bit is, and again, I was in Afghanistan just about a year ago. We are abandoning these guys, and we need to do more to kind of help them and make sure they don't fall apart. We can do stuff. The US is still propping up a big part of their budget, and by helping them build a government, we can effectively try and help them govern and keep the country running. But there's still quite a lot of US sanctions on the Taliban government, and this is the trouble, that there is still this last, classic example. If you go to sort of Kabul at the moment, a lot of the shops are full of food, but the ATMs to get the money to pay for the food is quite difficult. So you end up having problems of, can we, take the US sanctions off and make that banking system much easier? But by doing that, no politician wants to go on record and say, hey, we should support the Taliban. That's what policy wonks like me, who have, a depressed Excel spreadsheets of personalities, say. And B, there is inevitably, even if it's only $10, going to be money that comes in from some Saudi crazy person, in which case that gets picked up by Mossad, it gets picked up by somebody and then broadcast quite heavily. And then it's US takes the sanctions off and now it's a terrorist hotspot, even though in the grand scheme of things, it's probably not. Yeah. This is, it's a meeting of practical policy with icky things to do, or, letting the status quo run, which is not necessarily a good idea.
So it's something a second-term president could do, because you don't have to run for re-election.
Yes, I would be fairly certain that if Biden were to win re-election, he would probably, again, I shouldn't say fairly certain, I'd say it's higher probability than not, that the guys from the State Department would probably say, look, we need to help the softer parts of the Taliban start to build a state. We want them to effectively become, look, Vietnam was destroyed effectively during that conflict. We put a lot of money into them. We helped them build their state, and they're now a very good ally of the United States. That's kind of what we'd want to see from Afghanistan. Even if they're just neutral, that's still a massive improvement over what it was before. So it's a tough decision to make, and I don't know if I would be willing to make it if I was running for president.
Well, we do have to get to news. I appreciate you being here, and we'd love to have you back again. Don't be
anytime
half between visits again. Thanks for staying up late with us. Get a few minutes sleep, okay?
I've got probably about another 6 hours of work to go, so it's a long day for me, but that's all right.
Redlinepodcast.com, folks. Check out Michael's offering over there, and you'll learn something. I promise you. Thanks for being
Thank you very much.
Great day.
Yeah.
Right.
Good stuff. We have to get to news. I'm sorry, we're a little bit late. And Ron, ask those questions earlier on. That was a good question, but you made me late for news now. And then WRIV is gonna say, "Wait a minute, you're late for news all the time. Is it your fault or is it Ron Kane's fault?" And I have to say it's Ron Kane's fault.
Yeah, sorry about that.
But you don't have to. You could take the bullet for him. You could say, I'm the captain of this ship. And
no,
it's GD's show.
Irresponsible leadership, and I don't practice that.
You don't have to practice. You're very good at it.
All right. Well, let's get to the news with our fake AI guy. I'm going to keep on saying that he's fake until he actually shows up here.
I think he's fake, and the entire staff is fake. I think it's a kid. I think it's a 9-year-old kid in his basement who has a free version of InVideo doing all this.
They don't have to They,
Rod, what is happening over there? Rod, stop.
We're late for news.
Walmart officials revealed plans to close all 51 of its health centers across 5 states and discontinue its virtual care services.
The decision to shut down all 51 health centers in 5 states and terminate the virtual care offering was not an easy one, Walmart officials said in a news release. Through our experience operating Walmart Health Centers and Walmart Health Virtual Care, we determined that a sustainable business model for us to continue does not exist. Jessica Oakley reporting.
The British Home Office announced the initiation of efforts to detain migrants for relocation to Rwanda.
The goal is to facilitate flights to Rwanda within 9 to 11 weeks, as promised by Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, in an attempt to deter migrant boat crossings into Britain. The British government stated in a statement that Rwanda has a proven track record of successfully resettling more than 135,000 refugees and stands ready to accept thousands more who cannot stay in Britain. Joseph Eckerson reporting.
The United States imposed fresh sanctions targeting hundreds of entities and individuals linked to Russia's weapons development program.
The actions by the Treasury and State Departments aim to disrupt Russia's military-industrial base, chemical weapons programs, and companies and individuals in third countries that assist Russia in acquiring weapons components as its invasion of Ukraine enters its 3rd year. Liam White reporting.
Federal Reserve officials announced they are keeping their benchmark rate steady, citing that the progress in controlling U.S. inflation has hit a roadblock.
The Fed stated that it is maintaining the federal funds rate within the range of 5.25% to 5.5%, the same level it has held since the central bank's July 2023 meeting, which is the highest it has been in more than 2 decades. Economists had largely anticipated this decision given the uptick in inflation during the first 3 months of 2024. Paul Gomez reporting.
This is the latest news headlines.
Martinelli's has voluntarily recalled a single lot of its apple juice that was distributed to 5 major retailers after it tested for arsenic levels higher than U.S. Food and Drug Administration standards.
S. Martinelli & Company stated in a recall notice dated April 16, 2024, that the recall was initiated as a result of sampling by the state of Maryland that found samples from one production lot of Martinelli's apple juice, sold in 1-liter glass bottles, tested above the guidance action level for inorganic arsenic in apple juice, set by the FDA in June 2023. Kevin Sanders reporting.
Ford is recalling nearly 243,000 Maverick small pickup trucks in the U.S. because the taillights may not illuminate.
The company says a computer can falsely detect excessive current on one or both of the tail lamps, causing them to remain dark while the trucks are being driven. This can increase the risk of a crash. The recall covers certain pickups from the 2022 through 2024 model years. Jim Kender reporting.
Maryland officials approved more than $3 million in compensation for a Baltimore man who spent 31 years in prison due to a wrongful murder conviction.
Governor Wes Moore apologized to Gary Washington during a Board of Public Works meeting where the compensation was approved. On behalf of the entire state, I'm sorry for the failure of the justice system, Moore said, adding that while no amount can make up for the injustice. Lawrence Keller reporting.
Harvey Weinstein is scheduled for a retrial sometime after Labor Day, a judge stated, as the disgraced film mogul appeared in a Manhattan courtroom for the first time since the...
Now, Ron Cain would have killed that guy in Baltimore, just to be fair here. He would have killed, and then they would
saved the state $31 million.
Yeah, he'd be out of 31 million. You're right. So Ron Cain would have just offed him like right away. 31 years ago, he would have just said, "Fuck him. He's not important to us." But Harvey Weinstein, isn't he still in prison? Why do we bother with another trial for a guy who's going to die in prison anyway?
He's let him out of prison to attend the trial, right? Didn't they? Or was that just old footage I was seeing?
They're trying to get him home. That's what they're trying to do.
Oh, so that he can die in his own bed?
Makes you happy, doesn't it? Makes you happy. You want to even Ron's a murderous. He's just on a hell bent to kill everybody in prison.
Hey, it's nothing more than I love murder, and you know.
Hey, everybody, we're all gonna get laid.
Hey!
Yeah. That's my weekend, everybody.
Nobody cares about the taillight story at all.
Actually, I do, but it's okay.
You can't? Why? You drive that car?
No, but I have taillights. I think everybody who has taillights should care about that story. We should be all taillight sympathizers.
I don't know about synthesizers or sympathizers. Yeah, I don't know. I don't. And now, what about this? Because I do think we're probably on really shaky ground economically with this Federal Reserve. First of all, the Federal Reserve. This is one of the biggest problems in the world. Is the Federal Reserve's existence. Just they get to decide whether inflation will or whether they want to help reduce inflation or they want to keep it going on, and they keep us like guessing like what's going on, and we're dependent on what they decide. And who
Well, that's just it. We're not dependent. We shouldn't be dependent. It's just I'm trying not to. Okay, I do talk about this in critical joke theory.
Nobody cares. Nobody cares about this. You can say it here. Nobody. It's not like anybody's going to say, how dare he put that in critical joke theory. He talked about it already a half hour ago. Have you ever gotten one of those emails?
I get those all the time, usually from Ron.
Yeah, come on.
Ron calls me a redundant N-word. Just
Whoa.
right off the yeah. And then he pretends there's somebody from his family that sent it.
A redundant N-word.
Hey, it's all right. I got my certification and notarized letter, then I'm allowed to say it.
He got the he got the legal N-word card.
What you were going to say about the feds, and nobody will even notice that it's in critical joke theory. I promise you. Say what you were going to say.
Well, the problem is that because somebody's going. You're setting me up for failure, Matt. I know that you're setting me up for failure. I can't. No, I'll say something different about the Fed.
Okay.
They nice.
First of all, this is a major problem. This perception of me. I don't set anybody up for failure. I want everybody who's connected with the show in any way to succeed. And I
really,
people. Yeah.
Just let me stop.
And when people go online and do a video and start calling me a hater and crying about the haters who don't support like you. When I send them literally thousands of dollars.
I'm sorry, but I can't trust you, Matt, because only thing I think of is that I'll be sleeping and then I'll wake up and the power cord to my computer will be gone, and I know you will have taken it, and I won't be able to get on the air. Actually, I have spare power cords for my computer. That's not the problem. I only have one power cord that fits my monitor.
All right. Bill Rhodes is in the whatever it is, the chat room there, and he will be on the program next week. It would have been good to have it because he's a history, he's a history teacher. It would have been good to have his perspective on here with the Michael conversation, but unfortunately we didn't have that. He used the word nincompoop. Where did I hear Mike Binder used the word nincompoop in his Twitter tweets. Somebody called him a Trump supporting nincompoop, which he was really hurt by because everybody knows he's an RFK Jr. supporting nincompoop. So nincompoop is the word of the day. How about that?
Good.
You guys got anything to contribute today, whether it's observances or entertainment news, or there's nothing else going on? I know.
I'm an infant.
Wait, I got breaking news.
Breaking wind.
The world's best airports for 2024, according to Skytrax.
Wow.
Also happening today is the Presidential Medal of Freedom ceremony.
Wow. President Medal of Freedom. Now that's
and I got to leave here on time so that I can get.
It's the second biggest honor that the president can give to somebody, like the Medal of Honor. Congressional Medal of Honor is the biggest medal, right? What is is that Medal of Freedom? Is that second? That's like a presidential thing. He doesn't have to go through Congress.
This is like the equivalent of like an honorary degree from a college. It's like you're kind of doing your own thing. Yeah, Kid Rock got one. Ellen got one. Fucking like it's something you give to your friends to make them look and feel cool, I guess.
Rush Limbaugh got one, right? Rush Limbaugh got one, didn't he?
Probably.
Yeah, but he probably couldn't hear it, so who knows?
He probably sold it for drugs.
Yeah.
Fuck this metal you can sell for give me some oxycodone and you can have this metal.
That can't be the only observance for today.
Oh no, it's not. No, that's just something I saw trending on Twitter earlier.
Steven
no,
looked like he
observ-
just gave up. He's like, I'm not getting that award. I'm done for today.
Yeah, fuck it. I don't even care anymore.
Well, I'm supposed to. I have to leave here by 11:30 so I can get to DC to get my medal. So,
is that a lie?
I don't know. It's probably
No,
did it to fill the black quota.
Is it a joke or is it a lie?
To quote that great humanitarian what's her name from the Eurythmics?
Matt's had too much white weed. He's stuck in a loop.
Annie Wilson from the Eurythmics. Would I lie to you?
Wearing off. We have another new sponsor too, but I don't have the commercial ready. But we have another.
Oh, okay. So for observances today's National Paranormal Day.
That's good. Now, in your view, what falls under is Bigfoot a paranormal story?
I think it's technically a cryptid, which I think would be under that umbrella.
Is UFOs paranormal?
I don't know anymore. I don't know about the
It depends
UFOs.
on which state you're in, because in some states it's normal.
Parallel universes paranormal?
No, I think that's just I don't know. I think that's kind of maybe. I don't know.
No,
I think it's theory more than theory more than paranormal.
There are a lot of things that I don't know tend to fall under that blanket of it just retarded stuff. That's what it really is.
I mean, oh, sorry.
What is he saying? Mama is a. I couldn't say it. I can't read.
Mama say mama saku mama say mama saku. Shit. I lost my Michael Jackson quote.
Bev incident. What's the Pat Bev incident? What is the Pat Bev incident? What do you? Any of you guys familiar with what he's talking about?
I'm not.
Nope.
You're a bunch of nincompoops.
I am.
I'm an income poop. I don't make the money. I'm an income poop.
Yeah.
It's also International Wild Koala Day too, in honor of our last guest.
We could have put that up to Michael.
I know. I was going. I should have. Man, dang it.
Watch out for that syphilis.
And definitely, koala syphilis is a terrible thing. And then, in honor of Captain Von Schitzen's Pants, National Chocolate Custard Day.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, there's a few others, but they're kind of just dumb. National No Pants Day, National Public Radio Day.
And I do have entertainment headlines as well.
Right, we got entertainment headlines. What was it? There was one story. I don't know if you guys saw this in the news. And every day there's weird fucking stuff in the news. This surge in the southern part of the United States, 6 inches of sea level.
Immigrants. 6 inches of immigrants.
Sea level has risen by 6 inches. So the Gulf of Mexico is like jumping up. What could have caused that, you think?
Immigrants. They all jumped in the water and the level rose.
Yeah, because with all the immigrants moving up to our border, the earth, because it's flat, has shifted because some weight has moved, and now the United States is sitting lower. It's science. I mean, come on.
I will accept.
It's the cave frogs.
100% valid reasoning. Thank you very much. I'm glad you cleared that up for me. But so we're looking at. It could be because I was thinking this. Maybe Gilligan is going for you guys don't get this reference, but going for lobsters and moving the trap stick out just a little further, and they just think the island is sinking.
You mean people aren't lining up to hear old Bob Denver quotes from Gilligan's Island?
No, people aren't. It's odd to me that they aren't, but they aren't. But so just to explain that reference, the professor was trying to measure the water level on the island, and Gilligan was using the same stick to hold his lobster traps and kept moving it further out. So the professor assumed the island was sinking and that the water level was rising because of the stick. That was it. CD's looking it up. Gilligan's Island.
No, I'm looking up Pat Bev.
I looked it up too. I don't know what the Pat Bev incident is.
Declines to speak on fan and oh. No, I think he plays for the Celtics. Is that that he threw a basketball at a player? Is that what it was?
Oh, come on. Somebody now, Bill, you're in the chat room. Elaborate on your Pat Bev thing. Patrick Beverly?
Yeah. He threw a basketball at a spectator in the fourth quarter.
Now, you can throw a basketball pretty hard, but if you're not ready to catch it, you could get a broken nose. But it
was thrown at him first. It was thrown at him first.
They were throwing at him first?
Yep.
Where does a spectator get a basketball?
Right. They can't just.
You can buy them, and you can buy them or bring them because you're gonna have them signed or whatever.
Yeah.
Really?
But if you're gonna bring it in, why would you throw it? I guess you throw it because you want them to sign it.
It looked like if you watch the video, it looked like the person. I don't know if there was shit talking happening or what, but it looked like the guy kind of just like shot the ball over to him, looking like he was asking for something, but it wasn't received well, and then it just got chucked back, and it looked like it hit his wife.
So
yeah, I thought it did hit a woman.
He's not a kid. He's at that point. You got to get your temper under control. You're 35 years old, and deal with it.
I don't think you have to get your temper under control until you're 36.
Don't make me come over there and kick your ass, you motherfucker.
No, what? See, and you're
your temper. I'm sorry.
What year? I mean, what state were they in? Was it a home game or away?
It was I believe it was in Indy.
Okay, so he was away. It was an away game. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, you're right, Matt. He's got to control.
It was in my backyard.
Yeah, if it was a home game, you don't have to control your temper if you're under 36.
All right.
NBA has rules.
That incident, folks. That's not paranormal. I just want to make that very clear. That's not paranormal.
It's not normal either, but it's not paranormal.
Right.
It's quasi-normal.
It's abnormal. Abby-normal.
Abby-normal.
It's time now. Are you excited as me? I'm pretty excited. It's time for what?
Showbiz.
Wait, it's time for entertainment news with Showbiz. It's Showbiz, ladies and gentlemen.
I can't do it without his glasses.
Yeah, I gotta get my glasses. Should I go get my glasses?
Go get your glasses. We'll rock out in the meantime.
Rock out with your glasses out.
Whip them out. Whip them out. Showbiz News with Ron Kane.
What, Ron? Show your business. Show your business.
Showbiz.
Remind me to ask GD why he hates John Mellencamp after the Showbiz News.
All right. It's fair. I think I probably know why. So the entertainment headlines. Let's get into it. First thing is ABC News fires weatherman Rob Marciano for anger management issues.
Do a ball at a fan?
Yeah, well, according to the New York Post and other outlets, Mr. Marciano, 55, was released by the network on Tuesday, but they didn't clarify why. They just said anger management issues. What do you guys think?
I think that's a catch-all title for he was diddling the boss's girlfriend or daughter or wife.
I think he had a freak out. I think he had a freak out in his office or something, I bet.
Yeah, probably broke his computer.
Yeah, or yelled at an intern, maybe.
Huh.
Yes.
Now, what was he, a weatherman? He was a weatherman?
He was a weatherman, yep.
How bad can he be? His job is like 50% rain, 50% not. Enjoy your day. Like,
yeah, he's on that.
Weathermen are not supposed to lose their cool. They're supposed to maintain a constant climate about them. I don't know.
You're on air for 5 minutes a day. You make a bad joke. This is your job. What do you have to be fucking angry about? You're getting $200,000 a year to like, well, because. To me, I always like it when they replace the weatherman with the girl in a bikini to talk about Mexico,
Brazil.
That's it, right? They have like just titty jugglers out there with the weather. Hi, don't pay attention to the weather. Look at my tits. It's raining.
Well, next headline. Big news today in the streaming world. Unfrosted drops on Netflix today. That's Jerry Seinfeld's Pop-Tart movie.
Gotta watch that.
Yeah, and the early reviews on it are not great. It is getting trashed. But
yeah, I told my wife wants to see it. I told her it was called Unfrosted, I think.
Yep.
And I told my wife that we don't want to see that movie, but she's waiting for it to download to one of the platforms that we have so we can watch it. She can watch
it. Deal with GD trying to dissuade his wife from watching my movie.
Yeah, it drops today, it dropped today on Netflix, so you can watch that anytime. I'm going to be watching it this weekend because I'm very curious. I want to see if it is bad or if it's just Jerry and Jerry.
No, it's bad. He was trying to describe it on some show, and even his description of it made it sound like it was just like something to do, like. You know, he said it was based on a joke that he used to tell like 20 years ago. And so someone suggested him that they could do it in the style of The Right Stuff. So it's Unfrosted a la Right Stuff, which I didn't get that. I didn't get that from the trailer. From the trailer, I got Bad Movie.
And I think some of the press for this has been kind of stifled since he went on that kind of little rant saying that the left has destroyed comedy type thing like earlier this week. So, you know, it's Jerry being Jerry, everybody. Also this weekend, The Fall Guy drops. Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt are in the reboot of the 80s TV series. So if you're interested in that, go see it. There's also a movie coming out, a streaming movie on Amazon Prime about hot moms. Hot moms.
What?
Yeah, it has Anne Hathaway in it, and she's a mom she's visiting this place called Pound Town throughout the movie, and so moms are making a comeback. It's not too sexy, but it's making a comeback.
I beg to differ. If it's got Anne Hathaway in it, it is too sexy. I'm
100%. She plays it. She plays a 40 year. Oh, go ahead.
She wasn't sexy in that. That's all.
No, she was. Actually, she was my favorite Catwoman. I just liked her. She was of the Catwoman. She was my favorite.
Yeah, and there is a movie probably from like 10 to 15 years ago where she's pretty much naked in a lot of it. And
the Get Smart movie.
No.
Yeah, she was naked in that a lot.
I think it was.
What I remember.
You have it mixed up with Get Naked. Get Smart and Get Naked. I think you have to.
Yeah, I think GD's stroking out on us. I think that's what's happening. So
I remember Get Smart. Everybody was naked in that movie. I remember it. I remember
one version.
Just like Zsa Zsa Gabor and her cat on Johnny Carson. I remember it very well.
Along with Bob Denver. I can hear everyone like, yes, more Bob Denver, right?
Yes.
TV-wise, Hacks, the show Hacks is returning to Max. Have any of you guys watched the show Hacks? It's on its third season is dropping. Yeah. It's Smart. Correct. Yep. It's a great show. It's got Gene Smart in it, and it's about a aging comedian who hooks up with a younger comedian to help her like revive her career, and it's actually pretty damn good.
It's a comedy version of A Star Is Born, right?
Yeah. But I mean, what's new, what's old, whatever. I mean, everything's rehashed somehow, but it's actually a pretty good show. So please check that out. They only release 2 episodes a week, I believe. And it's only like a 9-series run because, that's what streaming services do. And the final bit of news here, TikTok and Universal settle music royalties dispute. So now on TikTok, you can use Universal Music Group again, which means you can have artists like Billie Eilish or Ariana Grande in your TikToks again.
What about diss tracks? Can we use diss tracks in our TikTok now?
Yeah, you can. You can use whatever you want.
Cool. Now I gotta know what a diss track is.
And that today is your day in showbiz with
Showbiz.
Hollywood Reporter.
The only part of the show where Ron shows his biz. This.
All right. So that's big show business news. Now, the Unfrosted thing, I think I'm probably going to watch that. I think it's going to suck, but why do I feel compelled to watch that?
I think it's all the cameos that are in it. I mean, Bill Burr's in it, all these different comics.
Bill Burr, yeah.
So I won't recognize half the cast then.
Right. Now, there's not going to be any nudity at all in that, right? No nudity at all.
Probably very little.
Naked jokes. They'll have naked punchlines.
Just Jerry Seinfeld.
Yeah.
It's just a full frontal of Jerry Seinfeld for 2 hours.
That's what unfrosted means. That's what unfrosted means. It means without the coating.
That's in the director's cut where Jerry just does a full frontal spread nude. Look at this cock.
What does it do with my balls?
Look at my fruit filling.
Oh my god. Last night I went down to the port and
I was going to say don't mention the name because they didn't pay for sponsorship, but you went. Yeah. How was it? I was going to ask you about that.
It was a fun night. They put me up like last or second to last because I don't know, they didn't know me or whatever. But anyway, there were like 4 audience members and like 3 comics in the room when I went up. And it was such a great time. I had such a great time with those people. I got some big laughs, and it was a lot of fun. So
where's that located?
That's Fells Point, Maryland.
Wow.
Yeah.
And 4 people, and you got big laughs. That's
well, they were big people. They were big
people if you count the 3 comics.
Right? No, it was a great set because it's not like when you're up that late, that is really the time to play and really experiment with stuff. And I had such a great fucking time on that stage last night.
Well, I'm glad to hear that because we like to support everybody who is associated with this program in every way, despite what one of the people on the program had to say this morning about being set up for failure.
But the thing I wanted to say is the comic right before me, for some reason, I don't know, I guess they had Bluetooth or something going on with their music. It started playing Seinfeld music. Like, for some reason, it just started playing the theme to Seinfeld. And this comic gets up on stage. And so after he got done, and his set was kind of wild and weird, I got up there, and I asked the lady sitting in the front row, I was like, you really thought that guy was going to go full Michael Richards, didn't you? Because he looked like Michael Richards.
Wow. Oh, maybe that's why they play. If the guy bore a resemblance to Michael Richards, maybe that's why they played this theme. No.
Yeah, he had a sports coat on, and his hair is like kind of puffy, and it was just perfect.
I'm not sure you want to capitalize on that at all. The resemblance to Michael Richards.
Oh, sure.
No. Yeah,
but Fells Point, Baltimore. Fells Point, Maryland. Sure, that's the one place you can do it. Fells Point.
Yeah. Before we do Critical Joke Theory, you guys want to plug anything for this weekend? We have a weekend coming up. This is a weekend. I'm not sure if you're aware that this is a weekend.
Yes.
No, I have
go ahead,
nothing this weekend. I have nothing this weekend. I've taken this week and next week to kind of relax before I start flying around the country and other things that are to be announced. So
flying around.
I want to promote this weekend. Saturday night, Snits and Giggles happens at Snits Creek Brewery in Annville, Pennsylvania. Show is at 7 p.m. Headliner for the show is Jay Yoder. Is known from the Board Teachers Tour. He will be it'll be a great night of comedy. Then the other thing I want to keep promoting is Saturday, June 8th. In Albuquerque, New Mexico. Get your tickets to see Josh DeWay live at Tractor Brewing in Wells Park. Tickets are $20 online, $25 at the door. But buy your tickets ahead of time. We want to sell this out. This is going to be a great show. I have Josh as the headliner, the comic C. Bennett. She is from Denver as well. And AJ De Leon from Albuquerque. He's the local that will be on that show, and I'll be doing the guest spot. So please come out for that. Oh, then Friday, June 7th, I will be at Dry Heat Comedy Club doing a set on that Friday night before the show. So please come out to that Dry Heat Comedy Bar. And
it's so weird that you'll be in Albuquerque when Willie is not there. It's I don't know. It's
planned like that.
Well, I'm going to be out there probably for like a week and a half, 2 weeks. So
oh, so you might get to meet him then and buy him dinner and
yeah, I'm going to go to
an airport.
Yeah, because the first weekend I'm there, I got the shows and stuff. Then the second weekend, I actually might treat it like a vacation, but I'll probably try and pop up on some show if I can, and I'll definitely hit some mic.
Before?
What's that?
Have you been to Albuquerque before?
Yeah, I've been to Albuquerque before.
I was gonna say it's not like a vacation place. It's
no.
I liked it. I enjoyed it.
If you're being bored, yeah.
Now my wife has family out there, and there's a like a town 2.5 hours from Albuquerque north called Taos, which is right in the mountains. She has some relatives that live up there, and like Taos is beautiful. Like especially when you're out there in the desert and stuff, it's beautiful. It's close to the Rio, so we can go down to the Rio Grande and swim and stuff like that.
I know Julia Roberts used to live in Taos.
Yeah,
I had one of the girls in the cult where I lived in Taos, and she gave me spiritual sex, not physical sex, spiritual sex.
In other words, you got to whack off.
Yeah.
Something like that, but no, I didn't. There was no. You don't touch yourself. You don't touch her. It's kind of auric sex. I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain. You have to be there.
Peeping Tom. It's like being a peeping Tom without the touch. Okay.
Kind of just she tries to get you off without touching you, like right up again, like an inch away. But like
okay, so it's like a 900 number.
It's like imaginary sex. Yeah,
it's like a 900 number where the person can breathe on you.
Sort of. I guess. I don't know. You have to be there. I don't know why I brought. Oh, because he talked about Taos. But now, shits and giggles. What was it? Snits and giggles. What the hell was the name of it?
The show is called Snits and Giggles because it's at Snits Creek Brewery.
Oh, because tonight at Gov's in the Giggle Room, it's Kicks and Giggles. So it's that synchronicity thing as well. Kicks and Giggles tonight. Wally Collins in the main room, and Sunday, Lisa Marie at the Smithtown Performing Arts Center, which is a Gov's production. Anyway, we got to think about the Gov's. That's why
the Reverend Dr. Reverend Jelly Roll will be at the Church of Satire Comedy Club in Hanover, Pennsylvania on May 16th. So you can order your tickets like now. You can order them like right now.
And make sure. I just want to. On that note, I just want to say, make sure you bring your minor children. Buy lots.
No minor children, please. No minor children, because their prices are actually higher than the adults.
What do you mean? I thought we wanted as many minor children as possible to go there.
No, because there will be therapy sessions needed. Because look, I've seen the reaction to some adults.
For Mind Bloom, get your ketamine and bring your kids.
I've seen the reactions of some adults couldn't deal with it. Grown men were going, "Oh my God, no! What? Oh my God, no! What? What?"